Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. And it's 5:30. It's time to start this meeting and talk about the budget. Public comments. Smith.
Feel kind of lonely on that sheet tonight.
That's all right.
Yeah, I was expecting a few more than one.
Keith Smith, 105 Durham Street. Just wanted, I kind of looked at some of Mr. Hewitt's handiwork today as far as looking over the budget and their presentation. And I know that the proposed is a 14 cents or $14 per 100, whatever that is. I talked to my wife and my kids, and that's going to affect us for $200 a year, which is a bargain for living at Holden Beach. It truly is, but it's a $200 increase. So when my wife looks at the increase, it's not so much she's happy about the increase. So I would prefer it be neutral, down to like an 11 or maybe a 12, so that it's revenue neutral at my house, not necessarily for the town budget, but if I have to pay the $200, consider it money well spent. I'm sure that's not the opinion of everybody, but I am pleasantly surprised that the increase is not astronomical and that the adjustment was made to, because I know that the concern whenever they started reevaluating property was we were all real happy with the valuations. I was pleasantly surprised with the valuation I received, but then I thought, okay, on the back end of that, I'm going to get hit pretty hard, and so I don't feel like I got hit as hard as I could have in other areas. And so first off, I appreciate that, but if you could tick it down a little more, that would make my wife happy. And so if you could do that for me, I would extremely appreciate that. So that's it.
All right, does that complete our obligation to the public?
Yes, there were a few comments online. Oh, I posted them online. You've got them before you, but we said to you also.
Okay. All right, budget workshop. The beginning of the discussion. Mr. Hewitt, do you have anything that you need to add or bring us up to speed before we ask the commissioners to get started?
The only thing I'll qualify here is just a couple of points, is that we, as staff, have attempted to assemble the inputs and as instruction on the directions on which way to go. So that's what this budget attempts to do, is turn what we have perceived as the board's priorities into a game plan to put into effect the things that'll happen in the upcoming year. The second piece of that is that I want to make sure that everybody understands that when this budget is crafted and put together, we take the most pessimistic worst-case scenarios. Things are going to cost, the max. And so that's what this budget reflects, is the worst-case scenario.
Okay, commissioners, how do you want to proceed from this point?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to go through the budget message. Now, I think that would be the best way to address this and try to get through it as quickly. There's a lot of things in there that are okay. It was alarming to see some of the stuff that was different from the April budget meeting to the budget message. So there's a few things that I would like to go over and discuss. Is one of our taxpayers just said, the revenue neutral rate for next year, 23-24, is about 12.02 cents. That right there would that's kind of a flat number, but to anybody that is keeping their eye on things know that we can't continue to do things for the same rate. So again, later on in this, I'm gonna propose probably what, David was looking at in the new tax rate, of probably 14 cents. But first of all, I want to start with, part 3. It is the, employee compensation and agency donations.
Page 7.
Alan, for some reason, I don't have page numbers.
Okay,
It's page 9.
9. Okay,
Okay, the proposed 22-23 budget for employees is a 5% merit pay program in addition to a 6.9 cost of living, which we call COLA. I think in the other meetings, some of us commissioners had mentioned that, we were looking more like a 3% COLA and then adjust the merit somewhat. So what I'm proposing is that and one thing that we've also looked at, looking at the increases in what insurance is costing this year, you gotta take that in consideration too. That's part of getting paid is having your insurance paid, and if it goes up and your pay doesn't go up, it's just like getting a raise. But, and I think that was, some of them I looked at were somewhere in the neighborhood of 8% with the insurance increase. So I'm proposing a 3% COLA and a 3.5% merit, anywhere from 2 to 3.5% on the merit side, is what we would do for the compensation for our town employees. Do I need to make a motion as we go, or do I need to discuss it, or how would you like to move forward, Mr. Mayor?
Personally, my preference is to get a consensus on the discussions as we go, and then we'll get to the end, pass it all at one time. But if we do the consensus things as we go, and we have to refer back to something later on, we don't have to do all these votes over and over again formally and be locked in. But whatever the pleasure of the board is, that's what we'll do. So however you want to do it. Unless maybe you've got another alternative way, I don't know.
I think if we get a consensus, we can move on to the next item, I would think.
It's a little more flexible.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
All
Do we have
let's discuss what he's put on the table.
I started to say you don't need like a second to discuss. I looked at all municipalities, the county, the same ones that we looked at 6 months ago. 6 months ago, we directed Town Manager Hewitt to go to our neighboring municipalities and get every employee in this town up to speed where they should have been. We were lagging behind in the police department, I don't know what departments, but basically all departments. And we did that, not 6 months ago, we did that. And now we're proposing almost a 12% raise for every employee 6 months later. So I said, well, that's high. You shoot for the moon, I understand that. So I went looking to the same municipalities that he pulled, and I couldn't find one. The highest I found was 7.5%. So I'm pretty much in agreement with Rick with the 3 to 4% merit, and I would say a 3.5% COLA. I say the 3.5% COLA based on CPI and based on what my company pays in rents and things like that. I mean, that affects everybody. That's a cost of living increase across the board. Similar to what other municipalities have done, it's actually a little bit more. However, some municipalities actually decided the higher paid employees didn't get the COLA. They got $3,000 or $4,000, just a round number. I'm not proposing that. I think every employee should be getting the 3.5%. There's got to be some standard to it. I don't think it's fair to penalize, an employee just because they're higher paid that they don't get a cost of living increase. The insurance did go up 7 to 8%, But I'm also proposing that you move the grade brackets. The brackets that you have the employees in from, I make from $30,000 to $50,000, I think you need to move those up as well, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%, because if you don't, you're keeping the ceiling where it's at, and that ladder's getting closer to it, because you just gave them another raise. So I propose that you also move the brackets up, so in future years, future budget years, they'll have more flexibility to go up, where we don't run into what we just ran into 6 months ago. So am I making any sense on that?
It makes sense to me, but human resources probably needs to interpret for me.
It makes sense, but I would recommend whatever you choose as the COLA and do that for moving the brackets up. 'Cause
That's
how we
fine.
did it last year, so whatever you agree on for the COLA, we could just shift the brackets, the pay grade.
I wanted to move it, the only reason I thought maybe you need to move it a little more is because of the merit. So if you got a high merit increase, it might kick you over, faster to get to that point. But if you wanna move it 3.5%, it just needs to go up. I think it needs to go up because you can't keep that ceiling flat. And I just look at it like you're climbing the ladder. You're gonna eventually climb into something you can't move, and it's gotta move too, okay? That's
I agree, you guys talked about that last year, you talked
You don't-
about shifting
I don't
along
know.
with whatever, last year we did the same, I would say COLA is what you probably want.
I don't wanna see the town employees or staff ever get into the position they were just put in a couple years ago. Not intentionally put into, but we could have acted on it sooner. So that's my,
So you propose 3.5% COLA and 3.5 merit? Is that what you said?
3 to 4% merit, and the 3.5% COLA is what I'm proposing, along with moving the brackets. So
So I would,
anywhere in that is, I'm okay with that.
I was thinking more like 3% and 3.5 merit, but
I think, my opinion, I think 3.5 COLA and 4 merit is good. And increase the bracket like you said.
Judge, you got anything to throw on?
That sounds to me, I'm either way on the brackets.
so what was the final, anywhere from 2 to 4% on the merit
The 3.5.
and 3.5 on the COLA?
COLA, and move the bracket.
So merit would be up to 4%.
Up
So they
to
could
4.
potentially get a 0%.
Correct.
But
Right.
we have
Up,
our formula
up
for
to
exactly that.
4%, correct. I mean, that's for that, the employees that we have that, number one, we can't do without, and the ones that do a great job and go above and beyond the call of duty, they need to be compensated properly. And to try to keep up with this, and Brian's been, I would say 3, and he'd say 3.5, and I think that 3.5 will be fine.
Okay, help me in my simple-minded self understand that first 2 lines on this page 9, the proposed fiscal year 23/24 budget provides for an employee where it's got 5, what's the number that needs to go there?
Up to 4%.
Up
For
to
merit.
merit
4%.
pay program, in addition to a 3.5 cost of living.
Okay.
So,
How
just
about
so
that?
you know, I might have worded it right. He'll budget the full 4 amount for everybody, but it won't
Up
always
to.
stay.
Yeah.
Right.
And as Brian said, our county had that, an amount, but anybody that made over $50,000, it put a limit on it, and I don't think that's fair. Now, we've got employees
I don't think
that
that's
deserve, everybody deserves the same thing.
I also don't think anybody that shows up at work and satisfactorily completes their job should get less than 2. I mean,
We have a formula. It's
I don't
based
know
on
how you
they
do it,
yeah,
I'm just-
If anybody who's working here is not gonna get that. It goes on their evaluation, so it's based on how the department head does the evaluation.
So you have something in place that will adjust accordingly.
Absolutely.
All right. Are all of you in
I don't-
agreement on this?
Consensus.
I just don't want anybody left out.
Okay. Up to 4 and 3.5 on the COLA. All right, all right, what's next?
Okay, the next is, I guess the following page, it lists David has here the property tax proposed for year 23-24 levy at 14 cents per $1,000 of valuation. I think that we need to leave it, that needs to stay as is. That's, in my opinion, that's agreed to. Do we have a consensus?
And that's, from what I've gathered, that's approximately, for, everybody knows, it's approximately $470,000 for 2 cents. So it's $235,000 for each cent that we raise taxes at, right, Dan? Somewhere close to that. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want an
correct.
exact number.
About round to, I think, 38 for 1 cent, so.
So just to be transparent, 2 cent in the town of Holden Beach property tax is $470,000. Does it everybody agree?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Some people don't know, and I want them to know.
Judge, you with that? All right, we got 4 people nodding their heads on 14 cents tax rate. Okay, what's next?
Okay, the fund balance transfer, we're gonna talk about that.
Let me,
Oh, you're on page 11 now.
I know you
Yes,
run it, and I'm gonna let you. I wanna,
okay,
one statement on page 10. We just, did a 25% increase in construction fees, but then you got the wording that it won't offset the cooling of beach building. I hadn't seen beach building cool off, but does that revenue number need to be lowered? That's just a question for you. You don't have to answer it right now. It's just a statement.
What's there is the estimate that we think is gonna happen.
All right.
All right, back to page 11. Mr. Smith?
okay, again, we were discussing the, fund balance transfer to the B part. I'm gonna cover that, couple of, well, we can cover it now. I do not think we need to take money out of the general tax fund. You know, those are tax dollars.
I'd like to make a point there. I'm sorry. I need to make sure that there are tax dollars in the general fund balance. But the general fund balance is not just tax dollars. There's 2 whole pages of different types of general fund revenues that are in there. So it's a common misnomer to say that those are tax dollars, but it's not correct to typify all of those funds as being tax dollars. A lot of them are, but it's not just tax dollars in there.
Okay, well, there was a fund balance policy put in place in years past, and that if there was any extra funds in the fund balance, it says, upon closeout of an annual fiscal year statements and as detailed in the approved annual audit, any and all amounts resulting in a general fund unassigned fund balance greater than the maximum of 70% shall be transferred to the capital reserve account to be used solely for beach nourishment. So if we take any out of the general fund, it needs to go to beach nourishment, not to be part. And as we go through this a little further, I think a lot of the reason we needed that transfer was to do some work on the pier property, and we'll get to that, shortly. Can we keep that in mind right now, as far as what the policy is on that? Okay, all right. Again, the next page over shows that down at the bottom of it, it said fund balance appropriated, $1 million. That's what I'm suggesting that we don't do. All right, then the next page over is general fund expenditures. It's got a pie chart there. We're gonna go over to the next page where we've got the salaries and professional services, governing body, communications, public relations, the different things there. I just had a question on advertising, the $1,500 for advertising. What is that for?
Whenever y'all call a special meeting, whenever we gotta do an assessment roll, that's
Yeah.
Heather's advertising money, clerk
Okay.
money.
Again, the transfer to, on the next page over, the transfer to the B Park Fund, $128,000, $1,283,083. I don't, again, we're looking at, these funds are gonna be used or had later in the document here where we're gonna use those. I think it's $2.1 million to begin work on the pier. Number one, I stood in front of the LGC and told them that we were gonna use revenue from parking and revenue from the occupancy tax to take care of that property. I want to stick to my word, that's what we agreed to, so I don't think that transfer is necessary. So, again, that's, we can go a little further through here, we can actually see the line item where we're gonna talk about this, but also with the decrease in the COLA and the decrease in the merit, some of our other line items may be reduced some as far as 401K match and I don't know if it'll affect the group insurance any or retirement, but it could decrease those numbers somewhat also. All right, well, let's get through all the, let's go to page. Okay, I'm going into planning and inspections department, the list of costs for that particular group. And there was, now, we had already talked and Tim had explained to us about a vehicle, a capital purchase of a vehicle, but then the line above it, it has $10,000 more dollars.
What page are you on?
He don't have page one. I don't know where he's at.
Page 18.
18.
The planning and inspection starts on 17 and continues over to 18.
I printed it and it didn't print the number.
You want that to refer to or no?
Okay, that might help. Yes, page 18, that is correct. Can David, or you or Tim tell me why there's both the price of a capital purchase vehicle and then equipment purchase?
But the equipment isn't related to a vehicle.
We've got both the contracted services, but we also have the equipment purchase, and in that, I just added, in that is where the portal system is to upgrade the inspections department, make it more modern, I think is the term that we use.
Oh, well, they can do it online now?
Well, that's, I was told to make it more modern, and the only way I can make it more modern is give them direct access from the field, and so it requires a portal system.
Okay, well, that was just a question, Tim. I wasn't,
Good
didn't want
But-
to remove it, but I
But
couldn't, I
there's-
thought
it's
equipment
actually-
was a car.
And then the contracted services, there's actually a contract that goes with it, and there's part of that in the contracted services, because you're not gonna buy that process for $10,000, obviously, but there could be equipment upgrades that you need for that. But that's not vehicles, that's.
Okay. All right. The next, thank you. The next page is the water and the sewer fund, which is page 21. There's $1 million there, and it is, I think that is to go along with the monies that we were gonna get as part of a grant for that, and we have not received that as yet.
It's been appropriated federally, it's waiting for us, but we still have to go through the application process. And that is what we're currently doing, and it's gonna take a while.
Okay.
But
Well, then-
yes, to answer your question, that's the match.
Okay.
That would be the match.
That's our
Or
match.
the match plus the delta that we think, because the cost is programmed at $4 million on the lift station upgrade. So that other $1 million is the, not only the match, but the delta between what we're getting in grant funds and what the total cost will be.
Well, can that not be pushed back until we have money in hand?
Well, it won't be far until we have that.
Or use that money that you're borrowing?
Yeah. Yeah, you need to, we'll need to take down the EPA grant soon in the upcoming year. And in order to go to contract, because that was our understanding that we needed to get this thing built this coming fall, winter for next season. So in order to do that, you gotta get these things lined up ahead of time.
So
Because-
if we get the money, that's appropriate.
Well, I don't think that, even though there are some people that don't get it right, we're pursuing the $2.6 million, meeting those requirements, for the EPA grant. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So this is actually gonna be a loan that we're gonna take out for $1 million. Is that gonna happen like now, or is it gonna?
It'll have to happen, the timeline on that, because we're gonna be working with our audit, and we would actually have to go to the local government commission in the September, October timeframe. Or else, then we'll be working off of the next audit, and the LGC, they won't open back up until February, because of the requirement to use the updated audit. If we,
So this is just a proposed loan at this point, it hasn't been secured?
No, sir. No, sir. I mean, that's a whole application process that we've got to go through.
Is that stag like a pay up front, or is it, do we pay up front and get it back, or do they give it? How does that work?
It's reimbursable, so we have to pay up front.
We pay up front.
The
and get it
two
And
back.
get it
2.6
back.
million?
And the other part of that is that, I think what you're saying about when does it need to be in the budget, but like right now, the things that have gone in is we have to prove that we're environmentally sound and that we don't need to go through a whole NEPA process. Once they make a determination on that, then they turn you loose on the other documents. And part of the documents that are gonna go in next have a milestone schedule that's been coordinated with the engineer. So if this is gonna alter, that's gonna alter, and our whole work plan alters. So those are things that we have to know ahead of time if you're looking at doing that later.
Okay, so this is that grant, or the 2.6 million?
6.9.
That's something we're gonna have to pay up front, and they're gonna reimburse us with interest?
No interest. You're not gonna get any interest off of it.
Different agency than FEMA. I know what you're thinking back to the FEMA thing, but
Well, I mean, it's a capital project, it's gotta be done. I mean, it's just-
Well, the only reason I even brought it up is, that we haven't received the funding. I didn't know if it was, if it was getting close to where we could pull the trigger on it soon.
Well, you don't wanna wait until you get the funding. You wanna go ahead and get these things, just like driving Daytona. You're not looking at your hood on them, you're looking at the next curve. And that's what this is attempting to do, because those deadlines on pulling that money together are finite with the local government commission. And in order to get plans and specs in front and get those finalized in order to go to the local government commission, we've got to know that the expenses, because those expenses are gonna be incurred to do the plans and specs, that whole program is lined up in advance.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that that was something that we could put off until we were assured we were gonna get the grant funds, but if it's part of a process, an application process, I guess it would have to, be there. And that's, again, are there any other conditions for that grant?
And
Other
it's
than-
EPA. There's all kinds of stuff with the EPA. The first hurdle, like Christie said, is getting a free pass from the NEPA study, and that's where we're at now. Because and we don't believe that we're gonna have to do a full-blown NEPA study. That's gonna kick it into a whole other realm. But all the work's being done on-site. There's nothing going beyond where it's at now. Well, I'm sorry, it's going up in the air. It's not gonna expand past that.
Okay. Okay. Again, there was on page, let's see here. That's right, that's revenue. Let's see if I can find get a page number for you guys. I'm sorry, I printed it out and it didn't have a,
27.
27,
That's 27.
okay. Hey, on page 27, the CAMA grant, is that, what is this CAMA grant's pier? Is that not the walkway at the pier?
It's the Hatters.
The Hatteras ramp? Okay. And, again, we got a transfer from the general fund of $1,283,000, $1,283,083. And, that's what I'm suggesting that we don't do, or the $1 million from there anyway. The next one down is transfer from the beach inlet, CRF. That's what we just spent on the Lockwood Folly.
No, sir.
Is that the
That's
big-
that's not what we just did in Lockwood Folly. What this is the next project that the Corps does in the Lockwood Folly Inlet that's gonna put pipe up on the beach when they do the inlet crossing, that went to Oak Island the last time they did it. So that $346,000 is what we're estimating to be the price of the sand on the beach. And I believe it includes one side caster dredging in there.
This is what you call the being widening.
Yes. And that actually puts sand up with a pipe, with a small dredge up on the beach.
And that comes out of this, beach and inlet management fund?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Well, that's why we need to continue to put any of the excesses out of the general fund into that fund and make sure that we're, as you said before, shovel-ready, when something like that comes along, or, the effect of a storm, which I hope we don't have.
I figured that 25%, if I did it right, Miss Katie's out in the Lockwood Farley in the dredging right now. Thank the Lord. I think that cost was around $212,000.
So the total cost is $850, the state $637, and our cut with the county is $106 apiece.
each, so we only paid the 106. Okay, so,
But we haven't paid them yet.
I know, that's coming out of the same fund, the Ben Weiner.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, the next one is expenses on page 28. we've got down at the last sentence, a $2.1 million appropriation is made to renovate the recently purchased Holden Beach Pier properties. One service type truck is appropriated. Well, I want to talk about that $2.1 million. But let's go to page 29 first. And the professional services for these expenses here on page 29, what is that professional services? Is that for a sand search or
$89,800 is for Warden Smith for lobbying, $30,000 sand search completion, $25,000 is annual monitoring from ATN, and $10,000 for attorney fees for variances we may have to ask for with our ADA compliance for beach access.
Okay, so it's a combination of things in the professional services line. Sometimes that would help if it was broken out a little different, but I guess we might need to think about that when we do the budget again, so it's a
Well,
little
now,
easier for us to understand.
when we gave the working papers to the board, there was a column out to the right that had all of those costs listed out for the purposes of doing the budget message. We omitted that, because there's a whole bunch of other information in there too.
Okay, still on page 29, we have the $225,000 for public restrooms. Was that to purchase 2 more trailers, like we have at the pier now?
Those $100,000 each for 2 more restrooms at the east end. One would be at 114 OBE, which is also known as Quinton, but not really Quinton Street, the handicap access, and then another down at Avenue E. And public, there's also $25,000 of that is restroom cleaning and maintenance. So 200 are new restrooms, 25,000 is cleaning and maintenance.
Okay. So,
Is that, you talking about putting one in the handicap parking lot?
Yeah.
do we need will a full-size one fit in there?
We're working on design as part of the ADA stuff that the staff is working on. We're working on a design for that.
Due to the size of the lot there, I didn't think we would be able to put a trailer on that.
We're not looking at a trailer
Oh, you're looking at a,
bathroom.
okay.
Permanent.
Carmen,
Nice.
which one are we talking about?
Quentin?
Quinton and Avenue
Well,
E.
114 OBE.
Right, sorry.
Quinton is a street.
Yeah.
That's right.
114 OBE is where that's located.
Right.
Quentin, we were thinking maybe we could,
Yeah. So 114 OBE.
that makes a big difference.
Yeah, 114 OBE, we don't know if we can get bathrooms there yet. We're hoping to put bathrooms there. We've actually got the CAMA approval for the paved surface and to put the mats out, with
All
ADA
right.
compliance.
Good.
We've gotten approval for that.
That's awesome.
We're going to amend it once we get the pervious product on the ground and get it handicap ready. Then we will go back and amend that permit to add bathrooms, and we can figure out what the best way is to do it. I need to make it clear that we're gonna lose some handicap parking when we start putting this handicap parking back, because it was never installed properly. None of the handicap parking spaces per se, especially the van accessibles and the proper routes were installed in some of these locations. I have to wait until we get to that point to determine bathrooms there. 114, Avenue E at the east end, the bathroom is, we've actually had to reapply there because we are actually trying to include more pervious area there, gain more parking area there, and give us enough room for a permanent bathroom, which has been applied for with the application. So that application will come to permanent bathrooms if we get it approved.
And that will be to the east of Amazing Grace.
Yes.
Next door.
There is an emergency egress access that's been applied for there.
Right.
And a walkway applied for there as well. And with that, the bathrooms. I can share the plans with you, we've got those, but, you've got to remember, right now, we're hoping to get approval, so I'm just hanging on to it for right now.
So one trailer,
No trailer, two
permanent
permanent
bathroom,
bathrooms.
no trailers.
No trailer.
That'd be awesome.
That is awesome. My
Our
And
thought-
my thinking was that there was gonna be one on the east end, and then we were gonna put one up here at Jordan Boulevard, which with the bathrooms under the bridge, we didn't need to have two. So I was gonna reduce that by $100,000, but if we're doing bathrooms, that is, Brian said, that's awesome. That'll work.
I think what you were thinking about with Jordan Boulevard is that we applied for the pre-app for the CAMA grant to put a bathroom facility in Block Q. And we actually just heard yesterday that we've been invited to put in a final application by August.
Block Q,
Block Q.
good too.
That's,
Good job. Good work.
that's the best news I've heard in a while. All right, we got, down here at the very bottom of that page, $32,000 for, Holden Beach promotion. Is that something that we contract out?
Advertising, media, videos, a number of different advertising.
Golf cart commercial.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I guess the next page, page 30. We're about to the end of this. Page 30, we have a, access and recreation line, for $217,000. Is that part of the ADA plan?
Yes, sir. So you've got Coquina for parking lots, that's where we do our beach access repair and rebuilds from. There's $60,000 in there as an estimate for the east end access, that'd be Avenue E, and $60,000 for other walkways. $75,000 of that is the ADA maps that we need to order.
Okay, that's excellent. The one that is, the Block Q projects, I guess that do we have anything,
The latest update from Randy is that they pulled some more soil samples to do a soil analysis over there. But that $300,000 is an estimation on what that would take over there. That's the first phase of putting the parking into play.
which that'll increase the parking revenue somewhat in that area too, shouldn't it?
Well, no, I wouldn't
I don't
think
think
so,
so.
because it's about, you're just improving the surface that's currently being utilized by the trailers is, generally speaking, that's what it is, because you're not going to pave the green space out there, although the stormwater is going to be designed as if the whole thing was, carpet paved.
So we could.
So later on, if there was an impervious surface, something installed out there, you wouldn't have to go through a bunch of retrofitting and to make the stormwater work for that particular piece.
Okay.
It's kind of like pre-plumbing a house, I guess, or putting an extra chase in a house for improved technology.
Well, just like increasing the footprint, you just have to have more water storage underground, basically. All right, well, the big one, I guess, in the budget is the $2.1 million for the pier repair and project. Again, in speaking with, unless you got something otherwise, I think the best case scenario is to have some finished plans, which we had already given Chip, I think $183,000. And they were gonna do some engineering work and inspection work and so, drill sample work and that kind of stuff. And the best possible would be, in his opinion, would be sometime at the end of August, having all that completed and ready. So it could possibly go out to bid,
September.
okay? And then when it goes out to bid, that usually takes a couple months.
Depending on if you're successful in getting responses back, yeah.
Correct.
A couple months, I'd hope we were quicker than a couple of months, but,
So what I'm getting at is doing this appropriation for the budget this year, I don't think is necessary. I think we should hold off until we get, number one, get a plan. Let's get a plan and share it with our constituents here on the island, number one. Number two, once we get a plan and we figure out, put out a bid for what it's gonna cost to build it or to renovate it, at that point, we've got what we need, I think, so Christie can go after funds. But I don't think you can go after a grant or of any type to do that until you get the whole picture.
the board, at the last meeting that Chip was here, the board reviewed Chip's concept and approved that, and he has updated those, and we have plans for the construction over there. I mean, it's got complete with Appendix B. Tim, you can chime in anytime you want with the technical expertise, but Tim's got enough information that we can go ahead and apply for the CAMA permits and get those things cleared up and out of the way.
Good.
Now, that's where we are.
I just
We're
don't
on,
think we
we're on
need to.
go if y'all want us to, because he's doing work to get the CAMA permits and the repairs to the pier, as I understand it, are outlined in those plans, and you could hypothetically move forward if you get the CAMA permits.
I've got a full set of plans on all the repairs, including the design of the repairs, everything from the dip to the new portion that's gonna be put in and the ADA compliant ramp on the end of it. I've got the Appendix B for the full layout. There, I think might be an electrical layout or portion of it. They got a pile layout. It's got PE structural engineer seals on it and architectural seals on it. It was based off of the plan that y'all approved. And we're getting ready, we would have already had it done if we weren't so busy, because we've been working on the other stuff, the ADA stuff, but I've got everything I need to get CAMA permits to go forward with the pier repair. And to add that section that's gonna be replaced with the ADA into that portion, because it won't exceed the 50% amount. So, and I've been in contact constantly with CAMA to try to prep them to get ready for this application. And so the decking area, the seating decking area is also going to be applied for by a CAMA permit based off of those plans, and the ADA walkway and the Hatteras ramp.
Those are, there are funds in there already for those. But what I'm getting at, I don't think we
Well, for the
have,
Hatteras ramp, yeah.
we don't have the funds available without having to transfer stuff out of the general fund to move forward on this project at this time.
What's the foreseeable season that we'll be, can reasonably expect to be getting some revenues?
My understanding was that we approved it so that we could get the CAMA permits, because it's Because if anything's gonna hold you up, it's these environmental rules and regulations and getting the okay to actually do the work. Getting a set of plans developed and stuff is just part of the process. Now, if we're ahead of the game, you need to let me know, because we've got time limitations on some of this stuff, depending on what we want to do.
Well, the walkway is, the walkway on the 50-foot lot beside, I guess, to the west side of the pier and that Hattis ramp, because we're gonna lose emergency access to the beach there, positive, at the
Okay,
end
let
of the
me-
season, is priority. Is that,
Yeah, I'll agree with that, because we have that grant, and we only have 18 months from the time the contract.
and do we have $500,000 coming?
Just got it this
That's for
afternoon.
the
What do you
pier.
mean? All right, so
Well,
we just took, my position on it, and it's just me, is the sand fund's been, I don't like calling it sand fund, still, it's all a pile of money that goes to the beach if we need it. And the commissioner split it off years ago, and I'm not gonna question their intelligence or anything with the 70% general fund and the transfer into it. But we did just spend, you're gonna have to do the bin wider, 300-some thousand. We're spending money out there on that dredge right now. We need to keep money in that pier's not gonna put sand on the beach. I don't wanna overstep it. At the same time, myself included, and every resident in this community has gotta wanna see that pier open. So we need to start biting off some of it. You got a 50% limitation of what you can do each year. As far as getting it fixed up, you can't do it all at one time anyway.
Well, I mean,
Can
that,
we reduce that by $1 million?
Well, that's not a year, that's every 2 years here at Holden Beach.
So if we could just get that number down a little, you got 500,000, if we move a little bit over, instead of trying to chop, I don't even know where the $2.1 million came from, but somebody had to suggest it.
Chip,
Is that half of the cost of the pier?
that's the whole thing.
is that just for
Building
the,
and the pier.
is that just for the pier at this point and the Hatteras ramp, or are we talking about the building as
Well,
well?
see, you approved a plan that has your ADA compliant ramp hooked to your new building, hooked to your revised building. It was right there.
All right,
And so in order for me to get these camera permits, I have to include the permanent stuff that's
Right.
on the building. And I don't see there would be a reason to write a camera permit excluding the seating area and the area around if you're looking at the building on the left-hand side. So you've got some that's got to be done by a camera permit and some that we're hoping to apply for a camera permit and get an exemption. And I don't want to let too much out of the bag here, but that's what we're hoping to do. And then you can work on repairing the pier. And get a portion of, you're complying with all this ADA stuff at the same time, by the way. And get a portion of your new project, you know what I mean,
right.
done at the same time. There is a portion of the new project that requires ADA access behind the building. Remember the ramp that's off to the side? Well, that whole portion of that pier that he has proposed is to be removed from the building up, because we got to decrease the slope, and then there's an ADA compliant ramp in there. It's my understanding that if we make the application properly, that those would actually be exempt as part of the pier repair. So what y'all decide here to do will determine what my applications are going to say. And so I need clarity with those applications, because depending on what type they consider them, will determine the length of the value of those
Right.
permits. So there's a complicated situation here that's sitting on my desk, and.
How long do the permits last, Tim?
Well, that's what I just said. It's hard. I don't want to dedicate ourselves to them depending on what we get. I just don't want to say too much in here. But if we get an exemption, it won't matter. It's exempt.
Okay.
But we know that there's portions of it that will not be exempt. Those portions that are permanently attached to the building outside of the pier. Because if we permit that, then those portions of the pier will not be greater than 50% of the value of the pier or the structure itself, and we can get them exempted. We're hoping.
Okay, well, David, with this number that we have here, can we make that, can we reduce that by $1 million? And because all of the stuff that you're talking about doing can't be done in next fiscal year.
I mean, I just need to make my timing correct. That's not the issue.
We don't
My
even
timing.
know, well, if I had a plan in front of me, I could get it in my head, but I can't see it. Like, I don't know. I can't see like the minimum we can do to get to the,
I think there's
To the
one right,
beach.
right in there.
we've
That's-
gotta get people to the beach.
that's pretty
at the
close.
pier. We have to get emergency services to the beach
Ain't-
at the pier,
Ain't that it right there? Yeah.
sooner than later. So that money has to be appropriated, in my opinion.
It's the same plan.
We don't wanna miss more seasons than we have to.
This would actually requires a camera permit.
New.
That requires a camera permit.
That end portion would be what I would do, and that would be it.
This part, because it's not the
Exemption.
greater of this part, we can possibly get an exemption for.
But the
And
way,
all the repairs, including the dip.
All repairs.
And we have plans already for the repairs. We have plans for this section.
So-
We have plans for this. Now, that's what I'm saying. See, that's attached to the building.
can,
So this here, and this will be applied for, and this will be applied for separately in hopes of the exemption.
I got you now. I would say everything, looking at it to the west of that building, we have to do it.
Yeah,
Maybe we don't have a choice. So I don't know how much money, 2.1, you said does the whole project. I don't think that's enough, but to the west, we have to do.
We mean to the right of this picture. That's the left.
What, I mean, to
He said
the
west.
west.
west end, towards the west end.
I would just remind the board, and I've said this before, but as you're contemplating this, that part of frowns upon opening it and closing it, that's a no-no. So whatever you're gonna do to fix it, if you're working on it and you haven't opened it to the public yet, that's okay, but you can't open it and then close it to do something else.
What is that gonna do to the possibility of getting any grant money, Christie? I mean, if we just did $1.13 million to get the project off the ground and going, could we still apply for a grant to finish paying for it?
I think I have to answer it with it depends on what grant, because with Partif, you have to have a certain amount of components that you're gonna show as active recreation components. And in order to apply for the grant, and that process is by March submission to the consultant for review and a by May final application after her adjustment. So we would be looking at a May application next year, award in October, November timeframe, and you don't get your money until after that because it's a reimbursement.
So it becomes more problematic in what
Right.
amounts you can expect to get when you break it down that way.
But are there other grants potentially? Maybe. That's a wide open.
I don't see where you can halt the progression of what's already taken place, because once we got the plan, we said we need to proceed, the public wants to see the pier open. If we keep pushing it back, it's just gonna take longer and longer, and it's gonna mess up the work they've already done, if I followed Tim correctly.
The only thing we've done is acted on what y'all approved. We haven't taken any action because we would have. I'm telling you, if we hadn't been so busy, I'd already, based on what I knew, you know, in other words, in my mind, I think I'm behind.
No, yeah,
We can't, In my opinion, we can't take all that money out of general fund. I mean, this beach is the number one priority, that sand's the number one priority to me. We're depleting reserves that we won't have if we get a storm. If the inlet closes up again and we have to call our beautiful Miss Katie back, it seems like the only choice we have at this venture, but that takes money. So if we take all that money out and move it over, and what's your answer, Dave? If we get a storm, what's your answer if we gotta dredge the inlet again?
I think if you get a storm, that you've relegated yourself to the FEMA world. Damages to the beach are gonna be substantial enough that, the town can expect to, recover itself without the aid of a FEMA project.
Irregardless of
Irregardless,
2.1.
irregardless of what the fund balance in the general fund and the B part fund, balances become.
Well, the 500,000 that we got from the grant that came in today, you said? Is that already in?
It's not. That was the worst case scenario I was
So-
talking about. I excluded, if it wasn't in the budget and counted as zero, I didn't try to hyper speculate that it would be there.
So we're in a position to take that 500 and deplete, and take this 2.1 down by the 500,000?
You gotta remember, the way this works is that 500,000 comes in and goes into fund balance. And it would be actually the if this were the template that you were to follow. In essence, that $1 million fund balance appropriation, 500,000 of it is the reimbursement that you got back
For the purchase of the
for
property.
the purchase of the pier property.
Well, can this $2.13 million be reduced by $500,000 and maybe that will keep us from taking a million out of the fund balance? We'll take the 500,000 that we're getting
You-
and take it out, can we?
I don't know.
In other words,
It has to go to.
It's
I'm just trying not to take money out of the general fund and put it in the B part and then have this big number here on the pier.
to get to the 2 million, the $500,000 would come out of the B part fund. I mean, that's in essence what would happen. That's an appropriation.
So realistically, that's 1.6 million plus the $500,000 from the part of grant.
Yes.
But then you don't think we could start with 1.1 million and get this project moving forward? We're gonna have to have the total amount. I mean,
When we developed, when we developed this budget, it was based on the perceived direction from the board that
I
y'all
wouldn't
want.
agree with that statement, not one bit. There was no, I never heard $2.1 million till this was shoved in front of my face. So
Well,
I would not say, I don't agree with that statement, so we didn't give directions
well,
to
we
spend
did is
$2.1
approve
million.
$183,000 for him to move
I ain't
forward.
buying it.
And
But
the
we
plan,
did approve the plan.
We did approve him to move forward with the testing and the
Was there,
borings.
was there an amount on that approval?
It was like $180,000.
$83,000, I remember that.
For Chip to go ahead and develop the plan and get the structural engineers and get the pilings tested and what all that stuff he was having to do. But we do,
And so now this is the projection for what that will cost. That's what a budget's all about, isn't it? The projection for what the plan is gonna cost. We didn't project the cost at the time.
personally, you wouldn't like to see it. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it. If it came from Chip, we didn't get it, so the
well,
people look at us like-
but our direction was to proceed with that plan that Chip approved a month, 6 weeks ago, that y'all approved on Chip 6 weeks ago. So that's what we did. We took it and ran with it. Chip's provided that estimate as far as $2 million on what it would take to do the whole thing, and so that's where that number came from.
Where is it?
The plan?
The estimate?
I got it in some dialogue with him, and so it
So
now.
no written estimate from contractors or no bids, no nothing? I just think
No,
it's
if y'all are gonna wanna get an engineer's estimate, you're gonna have to pay an engineer to give you an estimate on that.
I thought that's what we were doing.
You know, I got the, I ended up with the plans because I had to have them, and you well know, in order to apply for the camera permit.
I understand the process.
But I didn't, I'm not
I'm worried about
involved in it.
2.1 turning into 4.1 because it very easily could. And the town needs to know, and we have an obligation sitting up here being transparent to the town. I don't know, the town doesn't have a drawing. You don't have an estimate. You can't just,
I just said a few minutes ago, we got a set of plans from them with Appendix B and all that, and the architects,
you do, I don't. You do, I don't. I do not have them. I've never seen them. With Appendix B, I'm a licensed, unlimited, commercial, general contractor. I know what a set of plans is, I know what Appendix B is, and I haven't seen it.
okay, I
Haven't
did
seen a
not,
piling plan, haven't seen structural, haven't seen anything.
I wasn't aware that the board wanted that
Well,
back
this
to them, that type of
Board member
detail.
does.
Okay.
I mean, you can't say we got something that we didn't get. I mean, you're insinuating that the board knows all about this stuff, and we're sitting up here feeling stupid, because I haven't been provided with all the information, so therefore, I'm, as one board member, not gonna appropriate $2.1 million to a pier that I don't know anything. I know the rendering, I know what we need to do, I know what everybody wants to see done, I know everybody wants that pier built. But we took a huge leap, and it was a huge battle just obtaining the property that it's on. So to go off and running and just go spend all that money, if we run out, what if we get halfway and it's $4 million? I worry about other things. I just worry about other things happening. I know there's at least one more capital project that's gonna have to be done pretty quick. That's not gonna be cheap. And, you know, if any facilities need repairs or anything like that, we're gonna have to find money from that. I mean, we cannot bite this elephant right now, in my opinion. Start on it, sure. Make some progress on it, sure. You gotta get emergency access to that beach, because the one that's there is sold. No longer on it. Town no longer is, I mean, I'm sure the owner right now is glad for everybody to use it. I see campgrounds still camping there, but that property's gone. So we need to get the Hatters ramp in and that ADA walkway to that beach in some way not involve that building at this moment, if that's what it takes. And so we'll have enough money to do it.
Does the board want to review the plans that we have? Because we can get Chip down here to go through it, but my understanding of the direction from the board was that y'all approved the conceptual plan and to tally ho with making what we could make happen at the point in time. And so we went out and got the architect's estimate for whatever that is. Tim's got a set of plans that is permittable to get a CAMA permit for, so we brought it back to you. Now, if there's something different path or time frame that you want us to follow on that, please define that for us, because we've been operating under the impression that it's ramming speed, full speed ahead. Let's get this thing done as quick as humanly possible.
Well, that would be great if we had the funds to
If
do
we
it.
had the money, that's exactly
Well-
what we'd be doing.
Well, and y'all control the purse strings, and what we've done is we've set this up in a manner that if you wanted to move ahead full ramming speed, then that's what it's gonna take. If your perception is that that's not going to leave you enough savings, that there's some exposure perceived there, tell us what you want us to do, what makes you feel comfortable. But our understanding was that that y'all wanted direct, immediate action on fixing the pier and the pier house, and that's what we've attempted to do here. If you want to do something else, please let us know.
Can I just add one thing while y'all are looking at this number to keep in mind because when the budget ordinance comes out, it won't have it out to the side either, but that line that we're talking about, that does include your Hatteras ramp and your, beach access that we're talking about there for that grant. So it's about 66,000-ish of that is that. Your corresponding revenues over on page 27 where the state would pay us back the 5239. So whatever that number ends up being, just remember we can't change the 66,000 part of that because we've got to account for that grant.
Well, those two projects, 100% have to go. There's no question about that. I don't feel like that we can put that off. I definitely feel like we can put I'm not sitting up here saying don't do anything with the pier, but to try to bite it all off at one time scares the hell out of me. And I don't want to do it. I don't think we need to do it. I think we can do it, and you've said phases a million times. I think we're gonna do the bathrooms on the end of it this year. We're gonna get this part of the walkway fixed the next year. We're gonna get them out to the breakers one year, and then we'll get them out to the end the next year. In a couple of years, the debt service to the town drops drastically. I mean, and Central Reach, what is it, 26, 27, so it's not that far off. These years flew by. I've been sitting up here, feels like 10 minutes, and, I've been here almost 4 years. And I just think the town, as you move forward and be in a lot better shape in a couple more years, hopefully, provided we don't get any windstorms or anything like that, that we'll have plenty of money to go on and say, and then you say, yeah, let's do this. I'd get the building up and running and rent it. There's some revenue, and then start working on the pier. And I know what you're saying, Tim, when something's attached to something, but I know how easy it is to just leave a gap. And then it's not. And we can go on with that portion and hopefully, and then let's get some real estimates on what 50% of the building is and get that up to speed. And what I've learned, and I own one of the lots at the pier, okay, that got sold. And I've learned since I've owned it that getting that building conforming, would only be 5 or 6 feet off of the ground, if you wanted to look at it that way. And maybe, depending on what the structural stuff comes back like, maybe, as far as insuring it and that type of thing, maybe we need to revisit that component of it. I don't know. That's your wheelhouse.
Is there?
The DFE there is not very high.
Your DFE is, if I did it right, it's like 5 feet.
I don't know what it is, but
I
it's
know,
not very
but-
high, I know that.
I'm not,
Again, going back to when we were talking about moving forward with this, we were talking about doing it in phases, just like Block Q in phases. Boat parking, we get the grant applied for the restroom. So, we're doing it in phases. Is there not a phase of this that, we don't have to agree on all of this right now tonight. But between now and our meeting in what?
15th.
The 15th, will that be too late? Can you supply us with some estimates on possibly doing, as Brian says, do a phase? One of the phases has got to be the Hatteras ramp and ADA ramp, period. But maybe do something more than that possibly, and phase it in there where it's not gonna be the $2 million?
The Hatteras ramp and the ADA ramp are not part of the structure, and they're not part of any phase. They are individual structures standing by themselves. They're not part of the building.
Okay, but get us the price on that.
They've
We-
already,
we-
they've already got the
Sixty,
price.
$65,000.
Got a price on that.
It's in there, Rick.
So it's already in there.
Those two are in there.
Well, getting the,
Well,
what would it cost to get the building, not the pier, the building up and operating so it would be usable? I mean, you know, like I said, a
You have
phase,
to also
get the restrooms ready, something.
You have to, you have to consider too, the public interest, to me, my opinion has been the pier. They want the pier open, they want to be able to use the pier. There's bathrooms there now, so I don't think we're in as much of a rush to get to the bathrooms. My opinion, I don't think the building is the priority, but that's my opinion.
It, it,
The pier is not part of the structure.
What?
if Chip could digest it a little bit where we.
Do you understand?
Well,
I understand
yes,
that.
where we could do the
So we could
Hatteras
appropriate some
ramp,
money.
ADA ramp, and the pier, and not the building at this point. Because we got the restrooms on the other
Well, you
side.
can't hypothetically just, try to figure out what those phases are gonna be, but the idea is, and that's why we were trying to get a permit for the exemption of the pier, because the value of the work would not be, the pier would not be considered, it was like a walkway. And the work that the permit would be for that portion of the pier that we're replacing that's not attached, it's detached at the dwelling. Just like you would if you're in the ocean erodible area, you can have that walkway in that pier. It's not part of the pier, so then the two are separated as far as monetarily as to what the values are and the cost of work that can be done.
I'll make a suggestion, it's probably,
I'm-
it'll be good or bad. I think the piers are big enough, piers a big enough project to get Chip down here and you down here and commissioners, if that's what it takes, and have maybe a little workshop on it and see, and just kind of start over and go. I know we got a conceptual, it's not gonna change that much because we gotta stay within that footprint. I don't think we'd ever, I don't know that we would ever be able to change that footprint. But, and look at it again as to, if we turn it into a conforming structure, it changes a whole bunch of stuff. I understand the pier is not part of the structure, we probably would get an exemption on that, I would think. And we could start working on that pier, but maybe we could find a way to get people just
But
on
I'm
the
not-
pier.
Well, let me be clear, I'm not gonna let you turn it into a non-conforming building.
I get you, I get you. I'm talking about above DFE,
I
you know
got
what I
you.
mean?
What you're saying is bring it in compliance with the new firm maps.
That's exactly right.
Correct.
If it wasn't there, then we're gonna, you know what I mean?
Is that a possibility of getting that done, David, in a relatively short period of time when we can?
I don't know. It sounded like to me that y'all are wanting to redesign, y'all are wanting to consider a redesign of the project. That's gonna take, I bet you that's
Well,
gonna,
I'm not gonna redesign
well,
it.
if you're gonna go to DFE and have it supported on piles, that's a redesign. I mean,
Well, that's-
tell me if it's not, Tim. I mean, because you,
Mushroom cloud.
yeah, because you're gonna throw the other plan away. And
No, I-
basically, it's another stack of chips on the table for another plan.
That's a whole new design. You're not gonna be able to elevate the building.
Again, when we started this, we were gonna do it in phases. Can we not do a phase to start with without having to do the whole thing? I'm trying to get rid of this $2.1 million.
If you're asking me if you can do that, that's been my recommendation since day one. my thing is that I need to know what you want me to do, because if we're gonna phase it, I gotta get permits in phases, which is what I thought I was describing in the beginning, was that we have permanent permits that we have to get, and there's permits that we may be able to get that are exemptions. And they'll be separated, and there'll be two different ones. One can be done one way. I look at this, I don't, a lot of times I just try to answer your questions. But how hard would it be to isolate both sides of that structure, fix the entrance, and fix the pier?
No,
How hard would
not
that be?
at all.
That's phase one.
Not hard at all.
No, that's what okay. Thank you, Tim.
And I can't give you a timeline because we're still waiting on bores and, you know, that kind of thing.
That's-
But we have a design, and depending on whether the bores match, that'll mean they'll change the engineering. But Brian can tell you that that doesn't change the plan to change the engineering unless it's something major. So they know how they're gonna make the connections. But we have the engineering and the design that basically shows that this is a repair. And if we want to phase the pier portion, then all that money that's spent will not be considered part of the building. Only that portion, if you decide to do something other than something temporarily in order to isolate the walkway straight through the building. At the same time, you're adding the decking and stuff on the left-hand side in a phased period that gets you to the left-hand side of the pier behind the building. And you've also added the ADA compliance to get onto your pier, okay? The other projects by itself, we know that we have 18 months, is that right, Christie? We got 18 months, and that's not even part of the pier. We keep acting like it's part of it. But I can get those two permits together, or I can apply for them separately, depending on what phase. I now understand that we want to do the ADA all by itself. The Hatteras ramp to ADA, make that go forward. But my recommendation would be is that we take a look at the pier, getting the pier repaired, and getting those ADA compliance things in place. And then the ground level decking over to the side, you know, you can get estimates, phase it in, do how you want to, but that's outside the structure, it's not attached. What we end up with is that portion in the building that you want to phase inside.
Can we get an estimate on that, David?
That will have to come from Chip.
Okay.
That's,
Well,
I'm
can we-
not qualified to that
can-
estimate.
Can we
I had
ask you
actually,
to-
I had actually in
do that
anticipation,
for us?
in anticipation of this dialogue coming out, I asked Chip if he be available to come down and meet with the board to talk about some of the more technical things, and he said he's available, not today, of course, but if there's, you know, I don't want to write a check, I don't want to sign him up for doing something
Yes, sir.
that I don't know that he'll do, but I think he will.
So in other words, it would just be, the building will be separated into two houses, just go straight down the center. Perfect.
Let's see what you're talking about, Tim.
It's normal here. It's basically, you can isolate this is the building. This is the part you got to worry about exceeding the 50% value in a 2-year period. Okay, you can actually isolate both of these sides. This does not have any improvements. He's chosen to back the doors up into the corridor, which is a good idea because you're out in the rain. And then, of course, will be a little bit of work out here. But this has got to be tore down. It's not ADA compliant, so it's got to be put back. It's also in real bad shape.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the
But
worst part.
because the value of this and the addition of this, because this can also be considered part of it now that we're changing it. Okay, because the value of this portion is not greater than the value of this whole structure, which this structure starts right here. Okay, so now this is not part of it, and these are not gonna be part of it. My thinking was that these ground level structures here, if we can get them permitted with these ground level structures, and of course, this is the thing that we have to do. So you could just, that's not part of the building. This would not be considered part of the building if we permit it to be done. And of course, this isn't either. But this part looks to me like, if we wanted to make any headway,
Well,
that we can build walls in here as temporary walls that won't be of cost value, and you can use them
I
here.
like your idea. If we can
That's an
Chip-
excellent
Chip
idea.
to come down here, that sort of gets us over the hump.
We
We'll walk
need
tonight,
we need a monetary estimate on
Can we
that portion.
ask you
6 months
to
ago.
ask
can-
Tim to do that?
We can make a budget amendment anytime during the year. So, budget some, whatever you wanna do, and then you can change it once you get the real numbers. If you want, you gotta get this budget message out.
So take it out for now and then put it back
I
in?
wouldn't take it all out. I mean, you're talking about doing something on,
Well, again, that's where I got
you
back
got
to.
$500,000 check today. If you wanna appropriate another $500,000, it might get done what he's talking about. I don't know.
The 500,000.
And then if we need more, we can
Just
appropriate more.
And just to make it clear to the public, this does not change the plan. None of that changes the plan
Right.
to approve. Because this part is still isolated and changed where it's at. There's nothing
People
added.
want
And this has not been changed where the bathrooms will go up and all of that. So that does not change the plan, it phases it.
I feel like I need to say something. I've been quiet purposely. One of my big concerns is, where are you gonna make a decision to revitalize, refurbish, improve, whatever, the old building versus elevating a new building? My basic bottom line is, I don't think it's a good idea to keep throwing money at planning and theorizing, paying an architect for something that you may or may not do. Now that you know that the new height requirement is much more reasonable, 5, 6 feet off the ground, somewhere you're gonna have to decide old or new. And the quicker you can make that decision, the more money you're gonna save, because that architect, every time you want that architect to do something, he gets paid, that's his living, and he'll do whatever you ask him to do. And how much have we already paid him?
I don't think we can do it.
Yeah, because I'm getting ready to, I want to ask you, Brian, you build on this beach, what's the minimum height you can build a structure?
8 feet.
8 feet. So
Okay.
DFP's not 6.
I think we're gonna,
I knew when he put his head down.
Well, the question
What?
still lies on the table.
Do you want it?
When are you gonna decide old or new?
I've decided I want the old. I don't wanna raise it up. I want to do it exactly like the plan is written right,
Honestly,
drawn
what-
right there.
Honestly, once it's done out, it'll all be new. I mean, in essence, you make a half new 1 year and half new 2 years later.
Well, whatever you guys wanna do, I mean, you,
I'm looking to the higher ups to, I mean, on the ground on the ocean front, not the safest place. So it's
some of us have seen water up,
up in there.
yep.
You've seen what's happened down there so many times.
If you build it right though, and if you build it like some of his, with the garage doors and all that stuff, it might just wash right on through there.
Well, I just
I
want to
mean,
clarify the 8
You know what I
feet.
mean?
I
You
just-
don't have without a
Well,
wall.
I just want to clarify the 8-foot depth, and then I want to go ahead and say that it does, if you're asking me,
I ain't-
if
I
you,
wouldn't.
you're gonna give, if you're gonna pay enough money, then my recommendation is to raise it. It'd be crazy not
What's
to
Chip's
say.
recommendation, you think?
Well, that's how
Well,
that,
the more money you spend, the more he's gonna make. I can tell you what his recommendation's gonna be.
I'm not sure it costs a lot. My wheels are turning, but I don't know how much it costs.
I don't know that it would be that much more
More
because
to raise.
it's awful hard to redesign an old structure. A remodel and
We're gonna
renovation
run
is a
into
lot of
stuff.
things. Good contractors run from it. They run from old renovations.
I
well,
wouldn't,
can we not, in the interim, still, not in the interim, put the, block off the sides of the building and go into the pier that way and do that part now? I mean, the only thing that'll be different at some point, if we do raise it, then the ramp will be up higher.
still.
Well, if you raise it, then there's less ramp.
Correct.
And they're off of that still gets them up that high. 'cause
Still
the
gets them
pier
up
is
that
high.
high.
Yeah,
exactly.
You gotta.
Still gotta have it.
You got to remember now, you already got plans, and I mean, I see things going wrong already. I mean, I just, I swore I would never review another set of plans in front of a board and try to figure it all out. But let's just say we just went with that. Now we got a Hatteras ramp with an ADA ramp that doesn't meet the building. But now it's too late, too low. Because we plan on attaching it to the building for the ADA bathrooms, right? I mean, there's a lot of work went into that, and now we're gonna dissect it here in the middle of a room
No.
and talk about the concept. If I got a big old red pen, we can go just mark the whole thing up and start over.
Leave it like it is, just give us an estimate on doing the pier and the decking on the east side and the ramp getting up to the ADA approved ramp getting up to the pier, boarding off the sides of the building inside, period. I'd like to have that number, please.
I mean, I think the board has to make it.
We could use the trailer for the bathrooms for the ADA and not use the building for that ramp. And that would eliminate that problem. We could get some
You could
red
isolate,
pins out.
we can, well, you can go ahead and decide you want to do that, and we could just not attach the ramp.
That's what I'm saying, that would be a fix for that part, that
Okay.
problem.
Well, I'm just trying to think of all of it.
Well,
I mean, y'all give me 30 minutes to redesign the building. Trying to get it
go
all in
get-
there.
The design is fine the way it is.
We'll have to go get some refreshments and some peanuts. Anyway, for now, I think if we back that down, David, just so we can move this meeting along to a $500,000 transfer or something like that, to give you some money to work with, plus the 500,000 that you're getting,
That's not
put it
going,
to the best possible use. We can revisit it later. I think everything else was,
So what you're saying is, $1 million for the pier
it won't take
renovation.
1.2 out, I guess, and maybe that's the way to look at it.
$500,000 from each fund to contribute $1 million for seed money or whatever we're gonna call that.
Or call it 1.1. I mean,
Whatever that comes out to be.
Whatever it is.
But in the interim, ask Chip to develop estimates that'll back that up in terms of phasing of it, and the initial phase would be what you're assuming that the $1 million is for.
I know early on there was the history behind this, and I'm part of it, so you can blame me if you want. I make mistakes, I own them. But there's two good old boys up here, and one of them's no longer with us, that we thought we had to get that pier open to pay for it, and we'd have done the work ourselves if that's what would have took to get them doors open, went up there and nailed some pickets up. I mean, that's just the way we thought, and that's where working with the old building, was the quickest way to get there. We've since figured out that it is really, really close to sustaining itself and paying for itself without the revenue of that building. And I think we all, I know it's gonna cost some money, but I think we might need to listen to what Chip has to say about what he thinks we should do with it, or what he would have done if he'd have had, because we told him what to do. It's our fault. I'll take responsibility, but we could say now, hey, Chip, is there a better way to do this? Is there a more cost-effective way to do this? Is there a way to do it where it won't cost much more money and we'd have a lot better outcome? So that's all I'm saying. And then we can, in a couple of years, if nothing goes wrong around here and Central Reach falls off, we can go ahead and build something really nice for everybody to enjoy.
But in the meantime,
We had two big pieces of land to pay for. We had to buy the property there, and we bought Block Q, Like I said, I know one other good, you got three little, the ADA word that we're having to deal with, and the salary increases, and then we wanna do stuff at Block Q, and we wanna do stuff everywhere. We got an East End access we gotta develop, and just a lot going on, so I think we need to, we'll nip at all of them the best we can do as a town and not break the bank.
Do you want to have the architect come meet with us ASAP?
Yes, sir.
I think so.
All right,
I don't know what his schedule is.
I mean, we can call a special meeting and whatever we need to do to meet with him.
I don't know what his availability is, but what I heard was same design, $1,000,001 and 500 from the general fund and 500 from the, B part fund. In order to,
Which the 500 is from the grant,
The-
basically.
I mean, if that's the way y'all wanna look at it,
Well, I'd rather look
I
at
dump it into the fund balance and,
I'd rather look at it that way, instead of it, looking at it
excuse me.
in another fashion.
and just reminding everybody, just because you put it in the budget doesn't mean you're gonna spend it.
That's true. Just because it ain't in the budget doesn't mean it should be. Stuff comes up. But
Just reiterating that whatever number Chip gives us, we're adding 66,000 to it for the Hatteras ramp and the access. And that $66,000 doesn't disappear.
right, we understand that.
And I'm gonna be applying for the kennel permit for that.
When- People are asking when that's gonna be in place, and I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer?
What's that? What's
The
that?
Hatteras ramp and the access.
As soon as we get as soon as we get a permit, we can go to contract.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you got a contractor to build
Well,
it?
I don't think don't.
We haven't solicited yet.
'cause we don't-
Is that something we need to do
We're gonna wait till we get a camera
to
permit.
get a
But
permit?
we do have a plan.
We've got a plan.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to move on. Mr. Hewitt, you gonna contact the architect?
Yes, sir. There's a one thing that it comes to mind here, if you'd allow me. Talking about the debt service on the Central Reach project, if you look at that, there's three, and this is just something that occurred to me today, is that there's like 3 payments left on that. If you would like to think about, you really only got 2 payments left, you can, because the third payment is gonna be satisfied by the escrow money that the county's holding. So the county's got one-year payment that was part of our bond agreement.
I had no
So-
idea. That's good information.
Yes, sir.
So that's 26,
That's,
20, yeah,
25.
25, 26. Okay.
be 26, because the payment is in 27 that'll be canceled out by return.
And that amount for the people listening,
Is 1.21308, $1.2 million.
Then you can drive some nails.
But that,
I just wanted to point that out to you, because it's
like
not
to change that to 1.1 and do the transfers that you were speaking of to get us to that number, and get Chip in here and let's talk about what we can do.
Okay.
Moving forward. This is I mean, you were right when you said that, we want to move forward on this project. I've never not said that. But then again, I can't in good conscience sit here and break the bank, because we're liable to need $1 million if we have a storm. And if we can knock it down that much, I think we'd be far ahead of the game.
Christie, are you satisfied with the 1.1 number?
Well, the 67's on a different line, isn't
It's,
No, okay.
we'll
You-
meld that in. The
good with
67 ain't going away.
Okay, all right, make sure everybody understands. All right, now are we ready to move on?
Another point I'd like to make there. One, and, because that's not an even number, we'd actually stuck another $60,000 in there for furniture in that line, because that outside seating area is tables and stuff, and we didn't want to get to, if we constructed that thing, we look around, well, there ain't no furniture here. So, by virtue of doing that, anyway, it's a detail.
Mr. Hewitt, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Right now,
No, not right now.
Mr. Smith, you still want the floor?
No, sir, what I'd like to do is take all the recommendations that we've, as a consensus of a board have agreed on, and make a motion that we approve those, and I would like to make a motion to approve the discussions that we've had this evening with the pay scale, and the other items that we had talked about this evening. I guess
Okay.
Heather needs to read them back.
Yeah, before I recognize you for your motion, I'd like to ask the clerk to read those back.
Yes, thank you, sir.
The decisions that I have are up to 4% merit, COLA 3.5%, and to move the pay grade to leave the 14 cents tax rate, and then the 1.1 million for the year.
Or whatever those details, the cabbage would be. It's
Right.
plus the camera 60 cents.
Right. But I thought we had the COLA at 3.5 and the,
Did I read it backwards?
I-
4%
what
merit,
she said.
3.5 COLA.
there we go. Okay, thank you. I would like to make,
No, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve those changes to the budget.
Is there seconds?
Second.
All right, discussion?
I think we've
All
had
right,
a good, healthy discussion on all of this, Mr. Mayor.
okay. Is everybody in agreement that this is what you want to do, vote on this and move ahead to the next meeting? Is that what we're gonna do? All right, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously agreed. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else, Madam Clerk? Mr. Hewitt?
No, sir.
I got one question for Tim. Have you run into any hiccups on the 88? List? Yeah, have you run, it sounded all good, I just wanna know.
I don't think there's been any, issues at all.
Okay.
The only hiccup we have is that I'm moving so quick, or we're moving so quick, until I'm getting estimates, and then, having, we're getting the materials changed. You know how it is.
Yeah.
I'm getting estimates ahead of time. I gotta slow down a little bit. But I'm hoping 801, the only hiccup we got is 801, we've got, some property owners across the road asking about, stormwater issue potentials. I answered him today, and I answered Cam about their concerns. That's-
Okay, Madam Clerk, for the public information, our next budget meeting is,
The public hearing on the 15th at 5:30.
everybody understand that?
Yes, sir, and there's a possibility of having, if we can get Chip in, to have a special meeting before that.
You could, or that's also a quarterly meeting. You would just like to have him come to that meeting, that's a possibility also. If he's available.
That's 14 days away.
That's fine.
Is that good with
Go.
everybody else?
Yeah, if we-
Make sure that he's added onto the
And-
agenda,
and-
if possible.
Well-
If he's available.
Well, that's what I was saying. I asked him and with that date in mind, if he
Thank you,
would
sir.
be available.
He did not let us know.
I just
and we
didn't,
can
I
make
didn't, I
adjustments.
couldn't commit him for anything else,
No, sir.
any other time.
All right, is there a motion with adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Judge seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously approved, and we are adjourned.